so ashamed. I mean, why can't I just say the truth? I mean, be who I am. I'm 35 years old. I'm so afraid to tell people. I mean, Susan, I'm gay.
So you were attracted to women and you knew it?
Yes, but it was never sexual either. It was just a connection. It's funny because all along, that was my biggest fear, is that it was going to get canceled. And I was not told that it was canceled. I was told through an assistant who read it in the trades.
It's no different than adultery. It's no different than, robbing, stealing, lying, cheating.
We all have things that are wrong with us, and we all do things that are wrong.
That's you saying that it's wrong. Look at all the millions of gay people in this country who don't think that being gay is wrong.
So we should accept it, though? Why?
The gay community has an agenda.
Obnoxious and objectionable material.
It is unfortunate that the sitcom Ellen portray their homosexual lifestyle as normal and acknowledges their behavior.
At the time you told your dad, he was with, his new wife, right? And your stepmother. And what happened?
And then they asked me to move out of the house. And so
Because?
She had 2 little girls that they worried that it would influence them. I understood it. I understand people not understanding. I'm fine with that. I can't, change anyone's mind. So that was just their response.
Y'all know what song I'm about to sing. You know what song I'm gonna sing. You know what song I'm gonna sing. MacArthur's Park is melting. You thought I was gonna do I'm coming out, want the world to know, got to let it show. Hello and welcome back to my channel. Nieces, nephews, nibblings, aunties, uncles, piblings, aunties, aunties. You know what to do, but if you're new, feel free to take a look around, suss out the vibe, or just sit in my workspace and talk about whatever I want, whatever I want. And sing a lot, unnecessary. Oh, hold on, my manager's calling me. Sorry, y'all. The manager called me and I wanted to make sure. Oh, this is low. I'm kidding. Actually, you know what? Don't hate the player, baby. Hate the game. So, as you can tell from today's cold open, we're going to be talking about a topic near and dear to my heart. Like all the topics. But this one is, never mind. Because I don't want to bore you with these ramblings and because I'm really trying to make these videos a little bit shorter. Says that every week. They're still 45 minutes. Let's pay some bills, make sure the crew is taken care of, and then let's just get into it, okay? Thank you to Helix for sponsoring today's video. So, as you can tell, we are in a different setting. We're in my bedroom. Mon boudoir. Is it ma?
I don't know.
Dennis, we're in my room because we are giving a shout out to Helix for sponsoring today's video.
Woo!
Okay, yeah. So Helix Sleep makes premium mattresses and beddings customized for your sleep and your body. Because as we know, everybody's different and therefore everybody needs to sleep on something a little different. So Helix actually has a sleep quiz that you can take to not only figure out what kind of a sleeper you are, like back, side, front. I am a side sleeper. Dennis is a stomach sleeper. After I took the online quiz, I got matched with the Midnight Lux mattress. And I just love the sound of a Midnight Lux, it just, I'm gonna be fully honest with y'all and let you know that I haven't gotten a chance to sleep on this enough because when they delivered it, I was out of town, sleeping on a much less comfortable mattress. Sorry, Cammy, but your mattress is not as comfortable. But as you can tell from this, listen, I'm gonna be sleeping good. Like, I'm not even worried about it.
This is a nice bed.
This is a nice, like, we're not joking with you. This is like, and the best part of all, y'all know I love comfort and I am just, well, I'm lazy. And part of the laziness of mattress shopping is having to go pick up a mattress, whereas Helix delivers it directly to your door for free. That is our favorite word. As you can see from this amazing B-roll footage of Dennis and I getting a workout. It comes in a box, and don't let the box fool you. I don't know how they fit this mattress in there, because this is not small, but they did. Wrapped it up in cellophane, all the plastic, I don't know, they wrapped it up good, okay? It was airtight. And the other good thing about Helix is you can try it out for 100 nights, 3 months or so, and if you don't like it, if you're not feeling it, if you're like, it wasn't as comfortable as I expected, I like hard, non-comfy, not nice mattresses, you know, I don't know your life. But if you end up not wanting it, they'll pick it up for you for free, which I don't really know what other companies do that.
No, actually, that's a very
Yeah, they'll pick it up and they give it back to you.
And you, well,
or no, sorry, they pick it up and they refund you your money.
Yeah.
And every Helix mattress comes with a 10-year warranty, and they offer financing too. So if you're like, I don't really got it like that much right now, you can do it in installments. We all have been partial to an installment. If you want to try out Helix, click the link in my description or go to helix.com/Khadija to get $200 off a Helix mattress. Okay, Dennis.
Sorry.
Let's just go to bed.
Oh.
Okay, well, we're gonna take a little, okay. We're gonna take a, yep, we're gonna take a nap. A bientôt. So, as far as I can remember, coming out has always been a thing. My formative years, age 0 to 8, according to Google, were in the 90s and the early 2000s. So there was always at least one storyline on a drama show or a teen program about a character coming out. So, of course, the concept has never been foreign to me. But where exactly did this term come from in the first place, and why has it stuck? Well, according to Abigail Sagai, a UCLA sociology professor who wrote the book, Come Out, Whoever You Are. That's a fun book title. I love that. Sorry, okay. Anyway, Come Out, Whoever You Are is a history about coming out. And Sagai notes that the phrase coming out emerged in the late 19th and 20th century as the gay subculture began to thrive in larger American cities. In her article in The Conversation, Sagai explains that coming out was used by gay men as a way of acknowledging their coming out into gay society and was actually a nod to debutante society. You know, that tradition where a wealthy girl, part of society's elite, gets introduced to society's elite. Sagai mentions how a 1931 news article in the Baltimore Afro-American referred to, quote, the coming out of new debutantes into homosexual society. It was titled 1931 Debutantes Bow at Local Pansy Ball. So it was super cute. Gayness was thriving as a subculture, and gay people were developing language to not only define their introduction to gay society, but to celebrate it too. The gay subculture was about finding out who you were, about you coming out to others like you, and we love that. I'm coming out, I want the world to. I don't know why it's so fun to just, got to let it show, I don't wear a bra anymore, I'm coming out, I'm coming. But of course, as we're seeing now with the backlash against trans and non-binary rights, the more visible something that was seen as subversive becomes, the more likely it is to, let's just call it what it is, become a moral panic. I'm talking to those of you who think that you can catch gayness by being around or exposed to gay people. Honestly, if you could catch a sexual orientation, don't you think more of us would be straight? I'm just saying, 1 + 1 does not equal bigotry. You feel me? You smell me? Either way, Sagai writes that as a result of this backlash, gay folks started becoming more secretive about their orientation, particularly through the 30s, 40s, and 50s. I should also note that during this time, coming out was about coming out to yourself and other gay people, not necessarily the greater public. People also had code phrases for homosexuality like family, a club member, and my personal favorite, a friend of Dorothy, to discern who was homosexual in mixed company, aka around straight folks. Personally, I think we should bring some of these back. For instance, I've been calling myself a friend of Latifah for a few months now. Another code phrase used was gay, and I was surprised to learn that because to me, that's like calling a queer person queer as a code word, like make it make sense. But as we all know, language evolves, changes over time, and gay originally and still does mean happy. The homosexuals of yesteryear, our gay ancestors though, actually borrow the term gay, not even from the happy definition though, but from sex workers who used it to refer to, quote, women in their profession. So we have gay as a code word for homosexual. We have coming out to refer to a person realizing they're homosexual, telling it to other homosexual folks. I have never used homosexual so many times in one sentence unironically. Phew. And we have this growing backlash and subsequent secrecy percolating under the surface. What could possibly go wrong? So after the Stonewall riots in 1969, the word gay was exposed since activists were now using it as a way to refer to homosexual people. Gay became a political term. So naturally, coming out also took on a more political meaning. Sagai writes, at the first Gay Liberation March in New York City in June 1970, one of the organizers stated that, quote, we'll never have the freedom and civil rights we deserve as human beings unless we stop hiding in closets and in the shelter of anonymity. And it makes sense. You're being harassed, assaulted, killed, you name it, simply for loving the wrong kind of person. At a certain point, you have to get out of hiding and stand strong in your identity. At a certain point, you need as many people as possible to do the same thing. That's just tactically sound from a numbers perspective, so ergo, coming out becomes political action. Say it loud, I'm gay and I'm proud. I think that was actually, I'm black and I'm proud, but either way. Standing up for your rights is key, and it's a lot easier to do that when you've come to terms with your own identity. When you take all the things that people have told you are wrong about you, and again, wear them as a badge of honor. But if coming out was a political action, a rite of passage for any gay person standing in their power, that begs the question, what did they come out of? And what do we call it when folks who aren't ready to come out don't want to come out? The ideal of standing out and proud for yourself, of coming out, also brought attention to those who were, for lack of a better word, afraid to come out. And they became the ones lovingly referred to as closet cases or closeted queens. But wait a minute, Khadija, all this talk about coming out in closets is giving a very particular perspective, an almost white Westerner's perspective. In an ID article by Lex Shu Shan titled, The Coming Out Narrative Needs to be Reframed, Shan writes, the process of coming out is often seen as complete when those getting the news demonstrate acceptance or rejection. But what happens if there isn't really any acknowledgement? Or if the response is, let's park this? So where does that leave the rest of us? What about those of us who are out, but it remains unacknowledged, particularly by our religious and/or immigrant parents? Now, there are folks out there that claim coming out is the surefire way to reclaim your identity, to have agency over your life and make peace with who you are. And later when I get into my personal coming out story, I'll talk about how it did do that for me in a way, but it can't be understated how difficult it is to come out when you're straddling different cultural practices, expectations, religious ones, and just the general tradition of heterosexuality, heteronormativity. The more intersecting identities you have, I imagine, the more difficult this process can be. The very first email I actually got in my bookings was from this West African girl asking me about how she should come out to her parents. And I basically was like, listen, in terms of coming out, I actually haven't. Threw some LOLs in there to make it a little less uncomfortable. But I just had said that I assumed my parents knew because they watched my videos, and I'm not like super secretive about being queer in my videos. I maybe don't make it a big spectacle, but I'm also not like, I don't know, it's not something I hide about myself. And then later on in the email, I also was saying that I just, think about, it's about how comfortable you are. And also about someone evaluating why exactly they need to come out in general. Because I told this person this, there are so many films and movies about coming out that make it seem like that's the story. And that wasn't my story. And that there are so many nuances to people's identities. Like, I don't know. I had to kind of put my own thinking and how I was raised in this part of the world aside and consider my parents and how they were raised and stuff. So for me, I was, at the time, this was in January of this year, I was just like, if you don't feel the need to come out, don't. And don't make it a big thing. Like, all these movies are making you feel like you need to. It's unnecessary. And in all honesty, I still stand by that advice because the coming out story isn't going to be everyone's story. And I think that that's okay. So I actually read a few different perspectives from folks who also didn't subscribe to this narrative of you need to come out. And a point that continued to come up was the idea of culture and heritage first, as in my culture and my traditions from that come before my gay identity. I am Gambian or Mexican or Pakistani or Chinese first, gay/queer second. Or from a religious perspective, I'm Muslim or Christian or Jewish before I'm queer. And I also don't think that that's everyone's story either, but it was a common thread for those wanting to hold off on making their coming out some big thing. In Musa Shadidi's article in Mikali magazine, Globalizing the Closet, Is Coming Out a Western Concept? Shadidi explores coming out of the closet as a Western product. Not to say it isn't natural for us to want to tell others about ourselves, but the way coming out has been packaged and sold as some big gay milestone, even though the representations of that type of queer coming of age story tend to skew to one hue. Either way, in Shadidi's piece, one of the Arab activists he spoke to explains that to her, coming out is the same Western tradition of individual need first, or in the same Western tradition of individualism. Coming out of the closet asks the individual to celebrate their individual identity at the expense of the whole group, and compels the group to accept the different identity of the individual. So Khalid, the Jordanian Palestinian activist who thought this, went on to say that she was asked by a white person why she wouldn't just come out if her family loved her, that they should accept her. And her response was, "For me, it is quite the opposite. If I like them, then I should not force them to accept something they do not want." And I kind of agree in that at a point, you're not doing what's best for the group or collective. You're doing what you think might be best for you, almost at the expense of those around you or at the expense of those you love. And I agree there could be more of a middle ground, since one could argue you would be doing good by the group or the collective if you introduce them to something new and, I don't know, kind of force them to see that the world has a lot of different kinds of people. Like, I can see both sides. Either way, it's never that simple. And let's just maybe get into my own personal coming out story to perhaps better contextualize my thoughts. Yeah, let's do that. I recorded this before, and then I was the whole time trying to figure out how much I wanted to tell y'all and how much I wanted to keep to myself, because as you know, I firmly believe that once you put something out there on the internet, it doesn't end up belonging to you anymore. People interact with it. It's just a whole thing. So I'm trying to still let y'all in and let you know stuff, but have boundaries. So bear with me. But my first ever memory of a queer person on like a TV show or program that I like, I'm not saying that this is the first time I ever interacted with queerness in media, but the first time that I remember it was when I watched V for Vendetta. There's like this whole scene, fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. It's up on this wall because it's one of my top 5 movies ever, right next to Romeo plus Juliet, Baz Luhrmann's version. Check it out if you haven't seen it. I think it's on Netflix. Incredible movie. But yeah, there's like a scene where this woman is talking about how she had roses with her girlfriend, how she came out, her parents kicked her out, it was this whole thing. And it was the first time I'd seen queer characters that I remember, and also like a queer feminine person, you know, like it was just the first time I remember interacting with queerness. And I can't think of thinking too much about it, to be honest. Growing up, I kind of was just friends with anyone. I didn't really think of myself as queer or anything like that up until I was like 19 or 20. I mean, in high school, my mom would frequently ask me if I was a lesbian. That was because I had a lot of queer friends, I guess. And I don't know. I don't know what it was. And I don't even know if I had a lot of queer friends. I maybe just had like 3 or so. But anyway, when I was like 19, 20 is when I started to realize like, oh yeah, I don't really care who I'm with. I will just, yeah, I don't really care who the person is. I'll just kiss whoever and that'll be cute. And at the time I was also very like wholesome because I thought I was going to wait till I was married to have sex. So to me, it was just like, yeah, I can kiss whatever. And so I would tell people this. It wasn't something that I immediately like walked up to people and was like, hi, I'm Khadija, I'm queer, questioning my sexuality or anything like that. I just, if somebody asked, I would tell them. That's kind of how I am about a lot of things. Like, I don't purposely withhold information, but if somebody doesn't ask me, I'm not gonna just offer it. Like, anyway, so that was my whole thing about being queer. And then when I was in my mid-20s, I started to allow myself, I don't know, I just was like, I'm gonna really try this gay shit out because I dated only men up until that point. Like, I had nothing against cis men at all. But after dating someone that was non-binary for a few months and then dating a girl and like, I don't know, just like talking to girls on dating apps and stuff like that, I just had realized that like, it was a lot less difficult. Well, we'll talk about femmes asking people out or like waiting to get asked out, because Lord. But it was a lot less difficult to be with a non-binary person, feminine person or woman than it was to be with cis men. Sorry, y'all. And I'm not just saying easy in terms of like communication, stuff like that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying easy in terms of like, I didn't have to spend months building trust and working on the relationship for me to feel comfortable just wanting to smash, you know? Whereas with girls, non-binary folks, if we have a one good conversation, I'm ready to smash. Like, I'm like, let's go, your place or mine. And I always used to just think it was because I was like, you know, sapiosexual, demisexual kind of person, you know, I just need to like really get to know someone before I can feel comfortable, you know. But it turns out it was just compet. And for those of you that don't know, that's compulsory heterosexuality. But anyway, how this all comes to a head in terms of coming out is I did not come out to my family until this year. So I am 29 and I spent basically 10 years having my own sort of journey with being queer and experimenting and learning about my sexuality and orientation and all of these sorts of things. I spent a decade doing that with myself, with my friends, with people that I dated before I brought it to my parents. And that may seem like a long time or a lot. Some people spend their whole lives, which is a lot longer than 10 years, so it's not that long in the grand scheme of things. But for me, the mindset was always, I am not going to bring someone to my parents or tell them that I am not straight until I have someone that I want to spend my life with, that I have to introduce them to. You know what I mean? Like, I just was like, I don't see the point in making them upset for no reason. It was my mentality about this. And I felt pretty strongly about it. My little sister was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Like, you know, my sister knew. Like, it's not like I was hiding it from my entire family or anything. I had a friend who had some pretty sage advice, who was like, you know, I get that you don't want to tell them until you have someone that you want to introduce them to. I also think, though, that might not be fair to the person that you would be introducing your family to, because they're going to be coming into a lot of stuff if you're just now coming out to your family and introducing them. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I didn't think that at first. I brought it to my therapist and she was like, yeah. But before that even, I was in this program and one of my mentors for it, who was one of my friends now, was talking to me about being queer and this person is Two-Spirit. So they were just talking about how like, you're not the first queer person ever to exist in your lineage, in your ancestry. It might seem that way because people don't talk about it or whatever, but queerness is not new. In many different cultures, it's always been around. It just seems new, but it's not. And that really just like, I didn't realize how emotional it made me, or how I just needed someone to give me the permission to just like, not only accept it as a part of myself, but tell my parents so that I could accept it further. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I ended up talking to my therapist about it and she was just like, she strong-armed me into coming. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. She didn't strong-arm me. I'm kidding. My therapist is like a black aunt to me. So she's just like, well, maybe you should tell your parents, you know, what's the worst, what's the thing? And for me, it was just being worried that they wouldn't be proud of me anymore. Or yeah, that was pretty much it, because I didn't worry about them necessarily disowning me, because I didn't ever get the vibe that my parents would ever do something that dramatic. I don't know what it was that told me that that wouldn't happen, but you never know. But yeah, so I called my dad and I was like, hey, Papa. I called my dad Papa. I was like, hey, Papa. He was like, oh, hey, what's up? And my dad and I had been like talking more at the beginning of this year, having like hour-long conversations about life and philosophy and all sorts of stuff. Like, my dad and I can shoot the shit. Like, we be talking, you know? So I was really scared of losing that by telling him this. But I just was like, I have something to tell you. And I was all worried and I was so anxious. Oh my God, I didn't realize how nervous I was gonna be. Even thinking about it now, I'm like, ah! But I genuinely cannot remember how I started to say it. But as I was saying it, he was like, oh, you're coming out. And I was like, skirt? Who taught this West African Muslim man about the phrase coming out? What? So he said that and it made it a lot easier. And I was like, yeah. And like, he was just being so nice on the phone. He's like, well, you know, you're still Khadija. Yeah. Like, my dad is just so chill about it. Like, he was like, you want me to tell your mom? Like, it was just so fantastic. And so it definitely made it a lot easier for me. And I'm still so grateful, because that could have gone left so many ways. I have other friends that are racialized POCs that have talked to their parents and it hasn't gone that way. But I feel very fortunate that my parents are accepting of it, of me as a person. And it ended up making it a lot easier, because shortly after that, I ended up not meeting, because I met my partner like a few months before, but we weren't together or anything like that. But I ended up, I don't know, it's almost like a weight was lifted and I was able to just like be with this new person and not feel like I was hiding this huge part of my life from my parents. And I still don't talk about dating with my parents. It's not something that I've done in general. Like, sometimes they've met people that I dated, but like, I don't know, for me, it's a respect thing of like, I don't want to introduce them to anybody else unless I'm going to be with that person long term. Like, that's just my mindset about it. For me, yes, coming out to my parents, telling them the whole thing after saying all that long story, God, this is like 10 minutes, it helped me feel a lot better. It helped me feel open. It helped me feel, and I'm not saying that it's perfect, because honestly, I think my mom be forgetting or like hoping that one day I will still all of a sudden date a dude, or I think, you know, there's always going to be a bit of a struggle. I don't know internally what the struggle is with my parents, because it's just a different cultural thing. It's just completely different. It's something so foreign to them. So I am sympathetic and understanding in that way. And I don't look at it as, well, if my parents can't accept me, then they're just garbage, because I know that my parents aren't garbage people. I know that they really do mean it when they say that they love me. And that some things are just going to be harder for them to accept than others. It's why there are certain things I just will not do in front of my parents. Like, there are just certain things I don't do in front of my parents or say in front of my parents because of their religious beliefs, because of the cultural practice. Like, that's just some stuff. And I get away with doing a lot in front of my parents. Like, me and my siblings are pretty, like, for children of like West African Muslim parents, we have a lot of like, I don't know how to explain it. Our family is pretty like, I don't know, interesting to me in the way we can all talk to each other and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think that coming out really did help me in feeling better, and there's still stuff to work on. But at the same time, I completely understand, because of my background and stuff, why it took me 10 years to do it, and why it is still something that if my parents never 100% fully accept but are still supportive of me, I will be okay with, because I'm really learning how to meet people where they are, especially when they're people that are close to me, that I love and care about, that I know don't want any harm done to me or any danger, but just don't know. Like, I have a lot more room and sympathy and patience. That being said, though, it is still not necessarily fair, and there are certain boundaries that I set up for myself in terms of having a family with my partner or getting married or any of that sort of stuff. There are still certain things that I am considering and thinking about and wanting to, I don't know, protect in a way, because as supportive as my parents can be, to the extent that they can be based off of their background and all that stuff, there's only so much they can do, and there's only so much I can do in terms of respecting their boundaries and wishes, but honoring myself and my life, is what I'm trying to say. And I think for a lot of queer folks that are, I don't know, just have so many intersecting identities, that have immigrant parents or super religious parents, it's something that, it's this weird line that you kind of have to keep moving around in a weird sort of way. I always have hope that if your parents really, really love you, like actually love you, not just you as their child, their property, but you as a person, they're willing to learn. And if you have the patience to guide your parents through, or the patience to know that you're gonna come out to your parents and you might have to come out a few times because they'll keep forgetting, like forgetting, putting it out of their mind because they just can't believe it. Like, I imagine I have to do that to my mom a few times. I don't throw it in her face, but I'm like, yeah, when I get a husband, okay, girl. Like, you know, like there are just gonna be those things that, as Sean pointed out, when you come out and it's unacknowledged, or when you come out, like, even if it's not the extreme example of your parents kicking you out and disowning you, but they don't ever want to speak about it, or they say, okay, I don't know if I can accept it, but I still love you. You know, I'm trying to talk to those people in those sticky little situations as well, because it can feel very disheartening, and it can feel like, man, my parents just don't accept me at all, especially when you have all of these coming out narratives making it seem like the parent is one extreme, they're kicking the child out, they hate the child, and then after they come around and they show up to the performance and everyone's crying and it's great. Yeah, maybe that's some, but to others it's a lot quieter. And even in, I think this was Sean's article, or it might have been Shadidi's, I can't remember which one, but one of them spoke about this idea of the small gestures that your parents do in terms of showing you how they're learning and growing and accepting who you are. For me, my dad even knowing the word coming out was wild. But when I was going to visit my family, I haven't seen my parents and my family and stuff in a few years. So when I went back to visit, I told my dad about the person that I was seeing, and before I even like finished saying it, he was like, oh, your partner. And I was like, it just like, when I think about it, it makes me want to cry that my dad even knows to use the term partner. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's the tiniest little ways. Or like, even if my mom might have a harder time accepting it or whatever, her just even like, I don't know, still being able to talk to me, call me, be like, I love you no matter what, and just being honest with me and telling me, but this is hard for me. Like, those little ways mean so much to me. And there are so many little ways that some of our parents, some of your queer parents, some of your parents, for those of you that are queer and you've come out and they maybe aren't acknowledging it, or they said they can't accept it, but they still love you, or all those different situations. There are so many small ways that your parents can show you, or guardians, whoever, that they are trying to come around. It's just change is very hard for so many people. And so, I don't know, when we talk about coming out, I really want people to understand that, like, yes, coming out gives you this agency, this freedom, there's this like, about it that you just can't deny. But it is not safe all the time. There are certain places in the world where you just cannot even hint at that because it is not safe for you. Okay. Shadidi talked about this in his article. He was like, listen, the Middle East, you know? So there are places where it's just not safe, or there are places where it is safe. Let's say you live somewhere where you can say that you're queer, but you say it to your parents and it feels very like anticlimactic, or it feels like they're not accepting it in the narrative way that you picture they would because of the movies you saw or whatever. But you just gotta understand, you don't have to do anything. But my hope is that you understand that that's not your story. Your story of coming out, coming into who you are is gonna be different and look different. Queer people are not a monolith. So if you want to wait even longer because you don't feel comfortable or it doesn't feel safe or anything, there's no reason to feel shame about that at all. If you do and your parents aren't shouting it from the rooftops and throwing you a parade because they're having a hard time accepting it, but they still love you, I know that it seems to accept little victories like that. But for some parents, especially based off of how they were born and raised, that is a victory to celebrate. Just being honest. We're gonna get into the final thoughts because I feel like I'm already doing this. My battery's about to die and I cannot do this again. Whew. Okay, so I don't know, I love having a little bun like this. Just like, anyway, so yeah, the coming out story. I hope y'all learned a lot of interesting things. I didn't know a lot of the stuff in terms of where coming out came from and the term gay. I didn't know any of that, so that was fun to learn while writing this script. I hope for those of you that are having a difficult time in terms of wanting to come out or not being sure if you should or shouldn't, that this gave you a little bit of comfort, if nothing, at least that, to know that your coming out story is gonna look different. I think it is cool to still call it a coming out, even if it's to just one friend or one sibling or your therapist or a random person on the street, you know? If there's even a way that you can say it to yourself, come out to yourself in terms of that, you know, coming out to society, debutante kind of thing, and being proud of who you are. Even if you don't shout it from the rooftops or say it to a bunch of people, I think that's a victory. I think that's important because yeah, I believe in flaunting. I believe in being who and how you are and standing in that agency. But I also believe in meeting people where they are, or I'm learning to believe in that. I'm still learning. Because some of y'all, I just be like, why? But either way, I think that giving yourself the space and grace, here we go. Oh, it's been a minute. Giving yourself the space and grace to come into your coming out in your own time. Boom. That's the video. That's the video. And if you feel like, it's not my parents' business, they're just gonna know me, they know, but they're not gonna need to know, sure, that's fine too. Either way, I said a lot of the stuff in my like personal journey as a my personal journey as a homosexual. So this final thoughts is a bit skinty, but yeah, just know that do it all in your own time, okay? Don't let anyone rush you. Don't let these narratives rush you about what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to come out, when you're supposed to do it, why you have to. Yes, there are power in numbers. There are gonna be some of us that can take on that mantle. It is a privilege to be able to come out and to come out in a place where you feel safe, where you feel that you will be heard, where you feel that you will not be harmed in the process. It's something that we shouldn't take for granted because not a lot of queer people do not have that opportunity, do not have that freedom. So whilst we're all encouraging folks to come out and be proud of who they are, let's also remember that those of us being proud of who we are sometimes got to do it a little extra for those that can't, you know, and hopefully one day those that feel that they can't or literally cannot, hopefully one day that things soften a bit more and they're able to, you know. But yeah, every story is going to be different. That is totally okay. Do not let any narrative make you think that you have to come out a certain way. I'm repeating myself now, which means it's time to go. So, as always, feed your plets, water your plets, and remember that you can always change your mind because you can. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Ooh, And I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye. Maybe I'm just being dramatic. Is this, can you see enough of me? What? Okay, I'm screaming into this microphone. Hold on. Let's turn this down a touch. Yep. Much better, because I'm loud as hell. Okay, that's better. Here. Oh, hold on, my manager's calling me. Hello? Let's try this again, shall we? Can you see enough of me? I can't see because the teleprompter is in the way. Did I clap already? Okay, I'm just gonna pretend that like you can see my whole face. Okay, I have that in the script too, but I just thought I'd say it here to make it quicker for your editing. Remember to clean up those transitions. I'm doing too much, Travis. Okay, I'm gonna chill. See you in a bit. You know I never proofread these scripts. Does it show? I don't know if I've done this song before, but if I have, just enjoy it again. Daydreamer, sitting on the sea, soaking up the sun. He is a real lover, of making up the past and feeling up. I'm so not in tune. Travis, I don't feel like singing right now. Yeah, I can't really. I'm tired. My vocal cords are fatigued. Okay, I'm gonna do the thumbnail now. I'm just gonna do that separate. God. I'm coming out, want the world to know. Got to let it show.